Mark fired a shot at the creature, but it barely did any damage. With nowhere left to hide, he was suddenly lifted off the ground, the monster's hand tightening around his neck. He was seconds away from death when Tingang arrived just in time. With one powerful swing of his sword, Tingang slashed the monster and saved Mark. But their escape didn't last long. Just as they broke free from the creature's grasp, another landslide struck. Rocks thundered down the mountain, and both men tumbled helplessly into the chaos below. When Tingang regained consciousness, he found himself lying beside a stream. His entire body felt like it had been torn apart. Tree branches had left deep cuts across his skin, but thankfully, none of the injuries were fatal. Mark had also fallen into the stream, though he was not in immediate danger either. The problem was, they had been separated. Not far away, the monster's furious roar echoed through the mountains. Worried about Mark's safety, Tingang grabbed his large sword and rushed back up the mountain. Meanwhile, Mark struggled through the shallow water and finally dragged himself out of the stream at the bottom of the valley. Exhausted, he lay down to catch his breath. But just as he closed his eyes, a massive crocodile suddenly appeared beside him. As if the terrifying monster wasn't enough, now there was a ferocious crocodile on the island as well. At such close range, if the crocodile attacked, Mark would have no chance of survival. Fortunately, the creature seemed full and uninterested. After a tense moment, it slowly crawled back into the water. The instant it disappeared, Mark turned and ran. The island was completely primitive, wild, untouched, and unfamiliar. Mark had no idea where he was or which direction to go. Stumbling through the dense terrain, he eventually arrived at a waterfall. The scenery was breathtaking, almost peaceful, but he had no time to admire it. There, beside the waterfall, stood the monster. It was applying moss to its wounds, clearly injured by Tingang's earlier strike. But while the creature focused on cleaning its injuries, it failed to notice danger creeping closer. Without warning, a crocodile burst from the water, clamping its jaws onto the monster and dragging it into the river. The once bloodthirsty and terrifying fishman had suddenly become prey. Who would win this brutal battle? Mark, who had been about to flee, couldn't help but stop and watch. Moments later, the water churned violently. Soon, the lifeless bodies of crocodiles floated to the surface. The fishman had won. Realizing the danger wasn't over, Mark quickly fled the scene. At the same time, Tingang wandered through the forest, disoriented. He came across the body of a dead skirmisher lying among the trees. Startled, he stepped back, only to accidentally fall into a hidden trap. As he looked up, terror froze him in place. A horrifying fishman loomed above him. But upon closer inspection, he realized the creature was already dead. There was a clear gunshot wound in its head, likely fired by the fallen skirmisher nearby. Both had died together. That meant one thing: there was more than one fishman on this island. And perhaps even worse creatures lurking in the shadows. Tingang pried a pistol from the dead soldier's hand. The ammunition was limited, but it was better than nothing. After walking for what felt like hours, he discovered a crashed fighter jet outside a cave. It likely belonged to the pilot they had encountered earlier. Tingang searched the aircraft, hoping to salvage supplies, but it was empty. Night soon fell. Elsewhere in the forest, Mark found part of a broken wing from the wreckage. Determined to defend himself, he fashioned a makeshift weapon from the aircraft debris. Eventually, he too arrived at the cave where the fighter jet had crashed. Inside the cockpit, he found a signal gun and a lighter. In the wilderness, fire means survival. With a lighter, their chances of staying alive increased significantly. Under the aircraft, Mark also discovered a bomb. It appeared the jet had been engaged in combat before crashing and had never released its payload. Mark decided to rest briefly before moving on. But unexpectedly, he ran into Tingang inside the cave. Tingang motioned urgently for Mark to follow him. He had discovered something important. Deeper inside the cave, they saw it, a massive cocoon hanging from the ceiling. It was enormous. This was the fishman's nest. The cocoon contained a baby fishman. After being relentlessly hunted, both men were filled with anger. Mark suggested using the bomb from the fighter jet to destroy the nest once and for all. They returned to retrieve the bomb. But just as they prepared to detonate it, the fool suddenly appeared from behind and attacked Mark. Mark was no match for him. He was stabbed in a vital spot and collapsed. Tingang fired his pistol, hitting the fool, but it wasn't enough to kill him. The fool was incredibly tough, and the remaining bullets might not be sufficient. Thinking quickly, Tingang aimed his gun at the cocoon hanging above. With a single shot, the baby merman fell from the cave ceiling. The surrounding mermen were immediately drawn to it. In the chaos, Tingang tried to help the severely wounded Mark escape. But Mark knew he was too badly injured. Not wanting to become a burden, he told Tingang to leave without him. He would stay behind and detonate the bomb. Tingang hesitated only for a moment, then he ran. Just as he reached the cave entrance, a deafening explosion erupted behind him. Flames consumed the entire cave. It seemed the mermen were finally facing destruction. Perhaps the explosion and fire were visible from afar. Not long after, a United States destroyer arrived at the island and rescued Tingang. As the warship sailed away, an injured fishman slowly appeared near the shore. The explosion had not killed him. And with that, the film comes to an end. The hell ships mentioned in the film are based on historical fact. During World War II, the Japanese army transported prisoners of war back to Japan on vessels known as hell ships. These ships were in terrible condition, lacking proper food, water, and medical care. As a result, countless prisoners died during the journey. In addition to those who perished due to harsh environmental conditions, many ships were sunk by Allied forces because the Japanese failed to mark them clearly as prisoner transports according to international conventions. Statistics show that between 1942 and 1945, at least 50 hell ships transported approximately 126,000 people. More than 21,000 prisoners lost their lives.